Today, I'd like to talk about an issue of woodwind playing that I have seen, well, basically lambasted, raked over the coals, all over YouTube comments, everywhere. Well, not everywhere, but mostly, referring to woodwind playing. And that is the concept of puffing out your cheeks. Now, I know from my beginning band days, eons ago, back in the age of the dinosaurs, that the band director said, don't puff out your cheeks. And he was right. You don't puff out your cheeks as a beginner. There are, however, circumstances when you are allowed to and really need to puff out your cheeks. So let's talk about some of those. So I've got my bassoon here, and standard bassoon embouchure, lips pulled over the teeth, jaws spread as wide apart as I can get them with my lips still closed. Now, I'm going to play a note. I'm going to play low D. Low D is notoriously sharp on bassoons, and I'm going to play this with an absolutely normal embouchure. And to me, that note sounds stuffy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to puff out my cheeks a little bit. I'm going to back off the embouchure a little bit and see if I can get that note to open up just a hair more. And I can get it to speak a little clearer. And what's happening there is by increasing the volume inside my mouth, I am creating what's called a Helmholtz resonator. A Helmholtz resonator is best exemplified if you look at a marimba. Underneath a marimba's bars are long tubes. Those are the resonators. In order for a vibrating column of air to resonate and sound with any amplitude, it has to have a resonator attached to it. For woodwind instruments, that resonator is our body. In particular, our respiratory system, our nasal cavities, our mouth cavity, our throat, all this apparatus that we use to breathe. The larger we can make that, the more low notes we can have respond. Me being a bassoonist, in particular being a contrabassoonist, puffing out the cheeks is almost a necessary thing. If I'm playing a low B flat, I'm going to puff out my cheeks just a little bit to give a little bit more resonance. Whereas if I play the same note with my cheeks really firm and tight, I'm not going to be able to get quite the volume. Now, let's talk about the actual muscles involved. There are two sets of muscles in play. There are two ways you can puff out your cheeks. One is right, one is very wrong. Let's talk about the very wrong way first. And that is the way that your band director back in 6th grade or beginner band tells you not to do it. And that's do that. And if I do that, I have no control over these tiny muscles here, collectively called the orbicularis oris, the embouchure muscles. And so if I do this, man, that's a funny face. I have no control over my embouchure. However, if I am working on these muscles back here, these are not going to affect the embouchure muscles to an extreme degree. They will a little bit right here, but this here is not affected. you can see just by that movement, you should not be able to hear much of a sound difference, if any. Now, of course, the other big reason to puff out your cheeks is if you're circular breathing. Whereby you store a reserve of air in your cheeks and then breathe in through your nose. It's an advanced technique that can be learned by pretty much anybody, but it requires to puff out your cheeks. Now, of course, there are some instruments where the embouchure needs to be so firm that it does not allow for as much variation. The higher clarinets, for example, if I'm playing E-flat clarinet, and you see, once I puffed out my cheeks, I lost control. Let me do that again. And forgive me, I don't really play E-flat clarinet much, and this instrument's not warmed up. It just happened to be in reach. But for something like that, yeah, I might, just for a little bit of tuning issue, but you can do a lot of tuning just with the cheeks here. So I hope that clarifies some things, and I know a lot of junior high band nerds are going to go on YouTube and say, he's puffing his cheeks, he's doing it wrong. All right, I'm going to tell you something. If you see a professional do it, someone who is paid to do what they do, and you are a junior high kid, a high school kid, you know, you're not to the level they are, chances are you probably shouldn't say anything, because I'm betting they know what they're doing. Just saying. Take the advice. Be nice to people on the internet, and don't call them out for something you think they're doing wrong. Just saying.